This episode of the EDM Podcast is brought to you by EDM Foundations. If you're a new producer and you're stuck with tutorials and you're not sure where to go, EDM Foundations might be the answer. We've had over 4,800 producers join and level up their foundational skills by practically making 4 pro-level tracks rather than learning a bunch of theory and concept. So if you want to stop wasting time and nail your music, head to edmprod.com/EDM-foundations. That's edmprod.com/EDM-foundations.
Tell me that you want me, that you feel the same way.
All right, everyone, welcome to the EDM Podcast. If you're new, this is a show where we interview artists, producers, and pretty much anyone in the industry who has something to say. My name's Aden Russell. I produce under the name Artsea, and I help run things here at EDMProd. And today we have Simon, aka Duskus, on the show. Now, if you guys aren't familiar with Duskus, he is UK born and raised, I believe. Is that right,
yes,
man?
That is
true.
You
are. Okay, sweet. Thought I'd check that. And yeah, so he's known for his experimental and futuristic take on electronic music and not really confined to a specific subgenre. You've had releases on Monstercat, Pup Foreign Family, but are now currently signed to bitbird, San Holo's label, which is a good home for your music.
Definitely.
And you've just had your most recent tune, Holdin U, come out, which is going to be part of a compilation, which we'll talk about later in the episode. And you're going to, by the time this episode comes out, have another tune come out later in November.
Yes.
So hopefully I got that little spiel about you right there, man. How are you? How's
man.
Things going?
I'm doing great, man. It's a wonderful day today. Yesterday it was
Awesome.
a bit cold, but today it's a bit nicer. So
yeah, because you're still in the UK at the moment, right?
Yeah. I'm in East London, so I moved back to my parents for a couple of months. I've literally just moved into a new pad. But yeah, I live like kind of near Canary Wharf, which is just east in London. Slightly cheaper area we found because living in Central is expensive. So yeah.
Yeah, I can imagine, man. I think London's one of the most expensive cities in the world or something I heard at one point.
Exactly. Yeah, it's horrible. It's just like, I don't know how long I can do it here, but it's all right so far. I think it's worth it because now like my manager's moving here and all of my other mates who make similar music all live here. So it's worth it for that right now. But yeah,
totally.
It's expensive.
Because are you planning on going back to the US anytime soon? Because you were there for a bit, but you're kind of bouncing back and forth. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going back on, mid-October. So I think the plan is anywhere from, 20th of October, I think. I've just got to do like one more interview at the US Embassy and then I'm going to book the flights and then I'll be on supporting Sam and then doing a tour with Slow Magic as well. So that'd be really cool.
That'd be awesome, man. Yeah, sick. Awesome, man. Well, for those of you who are listening who maybe haven't heard specifically of your music and yourself as an artist before, do you just want to like dive a bit more into your background as an artist and how you kind of, I guess, got to where you are today?
Yeah, totally. I suppose if I go like right from the beginning, like right from the beginning, it started with guitar lessons basically. So my parents weren't like super musical, but I think because of that, they kind of wanted me and my sister to like learn an instrument. So when I was like, I don't know, like probably like 7 or 8 years old, my mum got me guitar lessons at the school I was at. And it started off quite simple. It was just like classical guitar, like really basic stuff. And then I kind of learned like in England, we have like a thing called like grades and you do like sort of, it's like an exam essentially, and you sort of like level up and you do different grades.
Yeah, I think we got a similar thing here in Australia too.
Yeah. So I did that for a bit, and I think I got to like grade 6 eventually.
Nice.
After like quite a few years, and then I kind of got bored of like the classical thing a little bit, so I kind of got into like acoustic, like fingerstyle guitar.
Okay.
Because I kind of like the idea of you do that with classical anyway, but I like the idea of playing like melodies and like an entire song just with like playing the bass and the melody in in one, rather than like, you know, electric guitar, it's just like a lead or whatever.
Yeah, sure.
So yeah, I kind of like, there was an artist called like Andy McKee who I really liked.
Okay, cool.
And he was like, I don't know, I think I just liked it because it was like super melodic and stuff like that.
Nice.
And also another, like, I think he's like Korean or something. He's called Sung Jung. I don't know if I pronounced that right. But he was really cool as well.
Nice.
And I just sit on YouTube just watching these like guitarists playing fingerstyle stuff and trying to learn it, and probably not doing that well, but still really enjoying it.
Yeah.
And I think that was kind of just like sort of my entry into like this really melodic thing that I really liked, which is weird because then when in school, when I was like, I don't know, like 14 or something, there was a kid that came up to me and he was like, do you know dubstep? And I was like, who's dubstep?
Yes, who is dubstep?
Like, he sounds sick. And yeah, so I was like, went home and like frantically Googling dubstep and listening to all these like crazy things.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is the weirdest shit. Like, I don't know if I really like it. I don't think I like it, to be honest. And and then my mate was good, like, kind of cliche. Like, I think like everyone kind of gets into electronic music through Skrillex, but that was the case for me as well.
Yeah, totally.
So someone sort of mentioned Skrillex in school, and then I remember listening to Skrillex and loving like all the melodic sections in his songs.
Yeah.
But never really like loving the drops as much. Like which is, yeah, a lot of people liked it for the drops, and I just liked his like, he had like I think it's called "With You Friends Long Drive" or something like that, which is just
man,
vocal
that is
drops.
a beautiful tune. I was going to mention that one as like probably one of my favorites off that first, all that Scary Monsters and Nice Sprites EP. Yeah, great tune.
So good, so good. I think that was like one of the first inspirations for like vocal chops for me.
Nice.
So I remember listening to that, and then all the other stuff, and like all the like the bits where it wasn't like the wubs, it was just like really melodic and beautiful. So I just loved that. Yeah. I think over time I did start enjoying the drops and stuff, but I just thought it was really cool that you could make an entire song on your laptop.
Yeah.
So I think I like downloaded like, I think I downloaded like a copy of FL Studio because I was like, how to make music on computer. I just Googled it or something. And then, I downloaded FL Studio, and I watched this like YouTube video that basically I basically like made an entire song in one MIDI clip, just really long.
Nice.
I was just like following this video step to step, and I just like wrote an entire song in just like one MIDI clip that wasn't split up at all or anything like that. And I just remember
because that FL Studio, right? Like you can do that pretty easily. You just keep extending the step sequence.
Exactly. It was so weird, like, and then shortly after that, I realized Skrillex used Ableton, so I just shifted straight over to Ableton. I don't really know why. I just thought it was I have to do what Skrillex is doing or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
So got onto Ableton, and then I think after that I sort of came out with the name Duskus. So I think I like got onto SoundCloud finally. I remember people in school talking about it. So I got onto SoundCloud, and I still think it was quite early for SoundCloud. And I remember just like discovering this whole new world where just like loads of people like me were just like uploading music, and I thought it was so cool. And I was like, I just thought it was cool to like just have people commenting on your tracks and it's like a social media for producers almost. I thought it was so like unique. So that kind of, I got obsessed at that point, I think. It's like, I could see like there was a whole, because in my school I was kind of the only one doing this, but as soon as I went onto SoundCloud I realized that there's loads of kids like me doing this. So I was like, damn, this is crazy. And then I think after that I was like making like melodic dubstep for a while, because like I said, I like Skrillex but I didn't like the drops, so I just made like melodic dubstep, and I was like, I can't remember who I was listening to, like people like Scrux and all like what's his name, Seven Lions and all that sort of stuff.
So the classic.
And then I was like, I was making melodic dubstep for a while, and then I realized, I think I was just experimenting. I think I went on holiday to America with my family at the time, And I remember just being in the hotel room, and I just replaced the drums of a melodic dubstep tune with trap drums.
Trying to ride that wave.
So yeah. And then I was like, damn, like I've never heard anything like this. This is like, I don't know. I guess it's chill trap or something. I don't know. I remember just like putting chill trap or like heaven trap or something like that when I uploaded it to SoundCloud.
Yeah, nice.
And I think I put like a demo up called The First Route on my SoundCloud.
Yeah.
Or The First Route, depending on where you're from. And it was like a minute long demo. And I think because I put in the hashtag chill trap, which I didn't think about. I think I just accidentally did it. There's this like big page on SoundCloud of like, I don't know, like 10,000 followers. And they were called like chill trap, and they just like reposted like these sort of new genre chill trap tracks.
Yeah.
And this like genre was like completely new, I suppose, at the time.
Yeah.
And I think San Holo was following that. He saw like The First Route, which is quite funny, and he commented on it like, yo, this is crazy. And I remember clicking on his profile being like, damn, this guy's got like 2,000 followers, he's massive.
Yeah Back on the SoundCloud days.
Yeah I was like, damn, this is crazy. And I listened to his music, I was like, this is like next level. I've never heard anything like it, because he was just making melodic trap, and it was like insane. I was like, yeah, this is really cool. And then in his bio, he had this little thing called @bitbird. And I think before that, I was already like trying to send stuff to different labels like Monstercat and all of that. And I was like, you know what, I'm just going to give up on that and just work on music for a while and forget about all these labels and stuff, and just enjoy making music. I don't really care.
Yeah, fair.
And then I saw bitbird. It had like 50 followers, and I just like, just thought the logo was so cool. It's just like the classic bird, like the first ever one. I thought, damn, that's so cool. It had like a few colors to it at the beginning. I think it wasn't just like one color. It was like a few different shadings. I was like, damn, this is so cool. So I saw the email, and I just sent that track that San commented on to them, the full version.
Nice.
And they were like, yeah, we'd love to release this. So yeah, we put the full track out, and then I think I was in college at this point, which is after school, and I think it got like 10,000 plays over like the space of a couple of months. And I remember telling everyone in college, like, look at me, like 10,000 plays, man, like this is crazy. And then I think I released another track after that. I don't know. I think there was a release between that with someone else. I can't remember. And then it just sort of spiraled from there. Sam was like growing because he'd released a remix that was popping off at the same time. Bitbird was growing because of this new genre of chill trap, which then became future bass, which is like we were riding that wave of this like new genre exploding. Yeah. And then eventually it just progressed, I suppose. It just kept going for like years, and 7 years later, or whatever, however long it's been, 6 years later, me and San are still good friends, and I'm still releasing on bitbird now and a few other labels, and obviously my sound's progressed a lot. It's not like future bassy anymore. It's still got those elements, but it's still like that's kind of how it started.
Totally, man. Yeah, no, it's super interesting to dive into that. And yeah, I was going to mention, like, you've definitely, I feel like a lot of it's definitely inspired by that kind of more four on the floor, like house, grooves and beats, like definitely seem to be like what you're doing with a lot of that, which I think is really like a cool combination of like, it's not just like, I feel like combining like melodies with house, which is like what a lot of other producers have done already, but it's like a very fresh take on that sound, which I really like.
Yeah.
I'm curious, like, was house a genre that you also were influenced by in the early days, or did that kind of come back much later when you're like, you know what, this is a sound kind of route I want to pursue? Like, I'm curious how that kind of happened.
Yeah. I think I've always sort of been a big believer in just sort of taking like a sound that is quite big and whatever, and then just trying to flip it in a way to make a new sound. So like I said, with like the melodic dubstep, and then using just trap drums, which eventually became future bass.
Yes.
I think the same way I was like making future bass, and I was like, well, everyone's just using the same beat. What if I just use a 4-to-the-floor beat instead?
Yeah.
And eventually it evolved into this sort of different sound. Yeah, I think it's just like super experimenting and not wanting to just like do the same thing all the time.
That's
And
fair.
yeah.
Nice, man. Were there other kind of genres beyond like what you mentioned previously, like dubstep, house? Was there anything else that kind of, over the years you've been influenced by that you would say?
I suppose like, yeah, I don't know. I suppose like, yeah, this is like when I was like 15, 16, 17, I suppose. And
Yeah.
as it's progressed, I've kind of been getting, I think after that, about 18, 19, I started getting into like lo-fi house and stuff like that. Like I really like Ross from Friends and
Oh,
people
lovely.
like that.
Yeah.
Went like right when Bootman came out and all of those first records he did.
Such
I
a
loved all
tune.
that stuff. DJ Seinfeld, I love all that.
Oh man, such good. I was right into that like a few years ago too. Like I was
Yeah,
making that kind of music for a while as well under a different alias. It's lovely music. Yeah.
Yeah. But also just before I actually even started dubstep and all of that, when I was like a kid, my dad would always give me like an iPod with like the top 40 on it that he'd probably illegally downloaded.
Yeah.
And I'd just be listening to pop music all the time. So I think that's kind of also where that sort of, I love UK music and different drum beats, rhythms and stuff, and mixing that with pop, I think is kind
And
of
like the big hooks and that kind of thing.
yeah, something more melodic, and I think that's where those sort of forces come together.
That's interesting, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, and then I think, especially with like Holding You in the last year or two, I've been really into like the 1975 album, which a lot of people can really hear. Especially like the sort of garagey ones, the garagey tracks. Which I do like garage. It's really cool. I've also got a few mates that I've got a mate who lives over the road called Jemmy who makes really cool garage, and another mate.
Oh yeah,
Glim G.
I've chatted to him before actually. Yeah, he's a cool guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think I went around his. I was like, yeah, how do you make like garage? And he's just like, I can't remember what it was he said, but he showed me what groove to use and to use like a triplet grid and stuff like this. So then I just started experimenting, even though it was like completely different to his stuff. I just wanted to know how to like draw different drum beats that weren't, or rhythms that weren't just 4-to-the-floor, or like, yeah, just something different. And then I just started the same way, writing pop or whatever, but with, I don't know, I really like orchestral stuff. I really like Bon Iver and all these other things where they have all these like weird, like glitchy ambiences and all this different stuff that comes in. So I really want to try and put that in my music and have almost orchestral elements into it. And then also sometimes like the like most like, the most like, I don't know, dirtiest beat ever, but with like something really melodic. Do you know what I mean? If that makes sense.
Yeah, like full saturation, just like
yeah,
and then like real like lovely intricate keys. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, we'll see how that goes. I'm just experimenting like always, but
yeah, totally. I think like if we're all honest, music is just kind of like music production, especially, and just making music is constantly figuring out what you like and like how you can blend that all together in whatever context that you want to, and I think it's always evolving in one way or another, whether your sound is more consistent or it's more diverse, like it's still always evolving in one way or another, like, so it's hard to as you said, you're like, oh yeah, I actually really like these UK garage kind of beats, and it's like, how do I want to do that kind of stuff more? Like it's always evolving, I feel.
Yeah. There's also this other artist called DJ Healer who I'm quite obsessed with at the moment. He's like a really, I don't know if you know Tron Prince or DJ Metatron. He's like really like unknown. He's like he's not like on social media. He doesn't release music online. It's like all vinyl and it gets ripped.
I feel like I've heard the name DJ Healer somewhere.
Yeah, so that's another inspiration I'm really liking at the moment. It's like really, it's almost like ambient music with just drums, and it's like it's really like, I don't know. To me, it's really artistic, and not everyone would. Most people probably wouldn't get it, but I love it. There's like a bit of noise on there, and it's like really ambient. Yeah, I just really like it. It's cool.
Oh, that's awesome. No, I'll check that out. I like love that kind of stuff as well. So
Sick.
yeah, that's sick, man. And I suppose in terms of like non musical maybe inspiration as well. Like one thing, you know, with your Instagram, I feel like you do a pretty good job of is like curating a nice aesthetic.
Yeah.
Do you find visuals and that kind of thing play a big role in like, you know, what kind of sound you're trying to go for? Or yeah,
Yeah.
I feel like there is a bit of a tying up from an outsider's perspective, maybe, of those two things.
Totally. Yeah, I mean, I really like fashion and stuff like that. So,
Mm,
um, yeah, I like dressing up and trying different outfits and taking different
mm,
pictures. And my girlfriend's a photographer, so you know,
nice,
we go to like car boot sales together and stuff like that. Buy a bunch of random clothes, put them together, and then just try and figure out a cool picture.
nice.
But of course, like many other artists, we do have like mood boards and stuff of what we think would fit with tracks and stuff like that.
Yeah,
So yeah, I don't know. I think like because she's like a really cool photographer, I like fashion. She also likes fashion. We work together well. We come up with a good visual aesthetic that sort of matches the music and just what I really like, I suppose.
yeah, that's cool. I think you touched on it really quickly there. Mood boarding is like a great, you know, for someone who's an artist out there who's listening who maybe hasn't really put much thought into the visual identity side of themselves as an artist.
Totally.
Like, it's a very important thing to do. Something I've done on and off, and probably need to do a bit more again recently, like in more recent times.
Yeah,
But it's such an
totally.
invaluable thing to like, kind of, you know, everything is paired with visuals these days, especially, I feel. So it's nice to kind of know how your music can be represented in that way.
Yeah,
And it just it's a fun kind of activity, you know, figuring out what, even just like going on Google Images and Googling stuff and figuring out which kind of vibes of photos or
totally.
images or graphics would suit my music, you know.
Yeah. It's so fun to do as well. Like I
Mm,
really enjoy it, and I think it's also just so important as well. Like you said,
yeah,
like some artists really rely on the brand and stuff. You know, it really ties projects together and makes them like solid. And like a lot of people like also just look at the brand before they listen to the music. Naturally, you're going to look at an artwork before you listen to the song. You're going to look at like the Instagram or whatever. You're looking at something before you hear it usually. So it's
yeah,
important, definitely.
100%, man, 100%. Um, yeah, man, and I suppose like one last thing, like on kind of your background, and then we'll move on to maybe some more like specific production stuff. I'm curious, like you mentioned as well, you've been, I guess, in the game for a little while now,
Yeah.
and I would say like what's from your like artistic evolution maybe side of things, like what's one thing that you feel like has been that like what's one huge thing that's changed for you over that time, like from like maybe an artistic expression side of things.
Um, I think like when I started making music, like when I started production, I was like, yeah, I'm going to be this big. I want to be this big DJ that plays and stuff. And then I think as time's progressed, because I think when I started, I was like really like career driven. I was like, I really want to be like this artist or be big and stuff like this. And then I think
Mm,
as time has progressed, I've actually just become more artistic in a way, and I'm always sort
yeah.
of fighting with like um, career and then art. I suppose it's like trying to fit those two together so I can still be successful, but also just be really artistic and make the music I like.
Mm,
Um, I don't know. I think as time's progressed, I've just like I suppose maybe the music I like is niche. I'm more experimental
yeah.
um, and yeah, I don't know. I suppose sometimes you could say like if you become more experimental and stuff like that, you're more niche in a way. You're not as accessible to most people.
Sure.
So it's always like a sort of that's why I like combining this sort of pop stuff and whatever with
Mm,
something different. You know. So yeah,
totally. I think, you know, if I think if we're all honest as well, like, you know, the pop stuff, like, or at least pop inspired stuff, we know works for a reason, I guess. And it's like,
totally.
okay, but everyone, you know, you as you mentioned, like, you know, I would fall into the same boat. It's like I don't just want to write like straight up pop music either. Like it just wouldn't interest me personally.
Yeah, totally.
And if you do like that, then like by all means go for it. And I think you know that's a really lucky combination that you happen to enjoy that. But if you're not necessarily making pop like straight up pop music, there are still things you can take from that format and apply to your own sound.
Totally.
Yeah, I think that's a very, very good piece of advice. And yeah, like actually, real quick, like, are you doing music full time at the moment?
Yeah.
Awesome.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah. That's
awesome,
cool.
man. That's encouraging. Because I mean, and everyone's in like a different position with that as well. Like, you know, whether it's, and as you mentioned, like the struggling, the balance between career and like, you know, what you want to do with your art is definitely a battle. Like I feel that 100% too.
Yeah.
But it's encouraging to hear that it is like a possible thing you can do. It just takes that figuring out what that balance is for you, I suppose.
Yeah. I mean, you're going to get artists that like don't even want to like use social media and stuff. And in today's age, it's so hard because maybe like it's just so hard. Like you have to like, it's almost like now I feel like you have to get on TikTok or something. Do you know what I mean? Or
it's like I've been feeling that pull to like start making more like Instagram reels and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I've got a few fun ideas, but you know, I think at the end of the day, if you're going to do something or anything like with the marketing career side, you have to make it something that like you enjoy. And I think you can if you think about it, like you can find a way to make it something you enjoy.
Yeah.
It's absolutely key. Oh, awesome, man. I want to switch things up a little bit, and I want to dive into a little bit of the production side of things.
Cool.
So you mentioned as well, like in the beginning, you learned, like when you were starting out with music and kind of growing up, you learned guitar. Is that an instrument you're still using a lot in the studio? / are you using other instruments as well?
Yes, I am still using it quite a lot, to be fair. It's actually currently at my parents' house because I've just moved in here. I definitely like using it to sort of either sort of add a layer to a track, or if I do write with it, then I normally write differently to how I would in Ableton, which can be a good thing depending on what I'm trying to make, I suppose.
Nice. Yeah, cool. I think as well, like one thing, as you mentioned as well, like vocal chops and stuff like that. Like a big part of a lot of your tracks. I'm curious, like with sample manipulation and stuff like that. Like, are there any kind of fun techniques you have for like messing around with vocals that you want to share?
I suppose like the best. I don't know. I suppose I just sort of stumbled across. It must have been like years ago. I was like probably typed in how to make Skrillex vocal chops, something like that. And then I probably saw something on YouTube about like the sampler or something, and I really didn't like the sound of it. So I kind of came up with my own way, which was, I don't know, I think I saw a video about Melodyne and auto-tuning vocals, and I got like the first version of Melodyne. So what I'd normally do is I'd put a vocal in a brand new track, just find an a cappella online or something I've worked with on someone or whatever. Had an old manager at the time that was helping me find vocals. And I'd just write like the most emotional progression I could imagine underneath this vocal.
Nice.
And then I would like slap a Melodyne on the vocal. And there's something about the Melodyne form and shift I really like. Like, it sounds different to like Little Old Boy and all the other things. It's got a really unique sound. So I'd form and shift all the notes down and then just kind of move them and try and make even the notes even more emotional with that chord progression. Then I'd freeze and flatten that. And then I'd just chop from that and chop for like 30 minutes, like in a project, just going along. And then I'd have a break once I'd done that for like an hour. I'd come back and listen to it and just see if there's a cool melody.
Nice. That's sick, actually. I really like. So pretty much once you've got like the main kind of vocal, you just chopping it, arranging different versions, and seeing what you like.
Yeah, and then if I have a semi-cool melody, maybe I'll write a new progression to that, and then
Yeah.
maybe I could change the melody, and it's just sort of back and forth until I have something that I don't know. I think if you've got just two channels of just melody and chords, if you can get goosebumps from just that, then you'll make a hit. And then you can make a song you can put any production to it.
Yeah. It's it sounds infuriatingly simple, but it is true. I've talked about this with a few other guests we've had on recently on the podcast as well. It's some of the most simple songs were written by bands who had drums, bass, piano, guitar, really simple, and a vocal. Exactly. And the keys in the vocal or the guitar and the vocal are pretty much the carry. That's the song idea right there. You could strip everything else away and that would be most of the song. It's crazy.
Totally. That's kind of just one sort of, there's one sort of big trap for new producers where it's you think you have to keep going more complex, or you think you need this new plugin or this new way to do things, and because you've seen a YouTube video on it, or you think you always, I don't know, I think in the beginning you're trying to become really good by going almost too niche or something like that, but realistically I think after you've done that for a while, you kind of fall back into oh, it just needs to be simple. That's the best way.
Yeah 100%, man, 100%. Yeah, I think that's the sooner you can overcome that, there's a lot of freedom in I think it's what I would call going deep instead of going wide. It's focus on just having this one instrument and being or one sample and being what can you really do with this, and what would it sound like if this thing could sound like the best. Then chords and melody, man, that's most good songs.
That's it. That's it.
Unless you're making
get those two elements right.
Yeah, unless you're making neurofunk, in which case then obviously that's probably a bit different. But yeah. Totally, man. And is there any kind of other fun, I guess, just general studio techniques or ways that you work? I noticed, for example, one thing, I listen to music and I hear it just got lovely texture as well. Is that is there something you layering in noise and Foley, or is it a particular way you process sounds that you feel gets that vibe, or is it just the sound selection as well? What do you think contributes to that?
I suppose there's a few ways. Sometimes I do just slap noise on the track, or sometimes I'll use I don't know. I suppose I really like the crystallizer by Sound Toys. That's cool.
Oh, such a good device. Yeah.
And sometimes I just have that sort of stuff sparkling around. I also really like using the granulator, Max for Live granulator. I don't know if you've used that. But just taking sometimes that's another way I start songs as well. Sometimes I'll just take a really cool song that I like, and then just granulate it and write chord, sort of create steps in the automation of the file position to create different chords. If I ever start overthinking things, then I'll let it kind of make stuff for me. Even just
randomizing. I think in the granulator you can spray. There's a spray parameter or whatever.
Exactly.
Sometimes you can just lengthen the chop out a bit more, so it's a longer chop, and then just let it do its thing.
Exactly. Yeah. So all that stuff is good for adding random texture, I suppose.
Yeah. That's sick. Yeah, granular synthesis, man, is super powerful. It's so underrated as well. I actually literally just wrote an article on it for the EDMProd blog. Quick plug there. But it's just so underrated. It is quite a niche thing. You can't necessarily use it for everything, maybe, but it is I think the fact that it's sample based as well is what makes it so fun. Whatever you load into it is half the sound, right? And then it's how you mess with it.
Exactly. Sometimes I'll just export the entire song that I'm already working on, or mute the drums and all the percussion and just export all the ambient parts, or maybe also mute the sub bass and the bass.
Yeah.
And then export that and put that into the granulator.
Damn.
And then using the spray and stuff, because you've got no bass, there's going to be no clashing, and then you can sort of create textures and breakdowns and stuff like that.
That is a beautiful idea. I definitely need to get on that. That's such a good
Yeah.
idea. Just like, yeah, taking the entire texture track. I do find like if you're wanting to create those nice extra layers, and this is kind of sounds like what you're doing with the granulator here, is like taking an existing sound in your track and just like resampling it, messing with it, adding reverb and stuff is like a great way to get sounds that sound similar to the rest of the track but are different still, rather than like necessarily, which isn't always bad, but like getting a completely different sound and bringing it in might not always work. Like that's a great shout, actually.
Yeah, exactly. And then also a lot of the time, if I'm recording like vocals or anything like that, there's always just like random crap going on in the background wherever I am usually. And a lot of the time I do just record it from my phone as well. But you just get all these random things going on in the background that I usually just leave in because it's just like adds something like unique to it. I don't know. Which is always cool.
I love the phone recordings as well. Like there is something about like just the way it sounds. It's kind of like dirtier, but there's like it picks up the room noise maybe a bit too much sometimes too. But that's what makes it kind of really just different.
That's the thing. Is like there's so many videos out there that you should be recording your vocals like this and use all these types of compressors and stuff. You can just like sometimes just use your phone and record something terrible and it can still sound incredible. So it's like, you know what I mean?
Exactly, man.
That's the thing.
I 100% agree with that as well. So yeah, if anyone's out there wanting to record vocals, probably got no excuse.
That's it.
Oh, that's awesome, man.
Yeah,
no, that's some great inspiration. I'm definitely gonna, as I said, steal some of those and jump in the studio probably tomorrow and try some of them, because that's especially for breakdowns. I can imagine that granulator trick being pretty cool.
Yeah, totally, exactly. It's so cool.
Yeah, that's cool, man. Awesome, man. Jumping forward a bit more as well. So you've had a few releases come out fairly recently. So most recently you've had your track Holdin U, which, if I'm not mistaken, is, by the time this episode's coming out, it first came out as a single, but it's also coming out on the Gouldian Finch 4 compilation. Is that right?
Yeah, so it's kind of just like a pre-single to the compilation, I suppose. Like
nice.
So it's already a part of it. So when the whole thing drops, it'll be slotted in there on the compilation. But yeah.
Nice, man. And I mean, I love that track. I'll be using it for the intro to this episode as well, so people will have heard that as they came into the episode. But man, I mean, as I mentioned kind of briefly earlier in the episode, like that garagey vibe on this one is really dope, and it said it's something you've been experimenting with a bit more. Do you want to dive into the process of that track and how that one came about?
I think that one, I just started with the drums. So I was just going through like loads of different songs in my playlists and just finding different drums. And it's very inspired by the 1975. I can't remember which track it is on their new album, but the drums I just like basically nicked. But like I changed them quite a bit and put them in their own way, I suppose.
Sure.
And then I think I just like drew down like a bass line, something like that. And then just sang like loads of random stuff on it for like 45 minutes until I had a verse and a chorus. And then I just sprinkled it with loads of Duskus granulator, loads of stuff. Basically, that's how I came up with it. It was one of those ones that was more like, I chose to do certain things rather than it didn't come as naturally as some tracks, but sometimes you kind of have to like choose what you're going to do. And I feel like it was one of those where I was choosing different things, and I think it worked. I think it was cool. Like,
man, the rim shot, I'm just like, oh, that just sticks out in a really lovely way. But yeah, like the chords and melody is just, I think I said before I started recording, but love that tune, man. It's so good. And
thank you, man.
Of course, man. I think you also touched on something really interesting really quick there. I actually haven't listened to the new 1975 album yet. I do need to go give that a play at some point, definitely. But I think, like another thing like new producers can do is just like overcomplicate. Like it's like, oh, I can't possibly just like reference a track I like and just copy the drums and,
Yeah.
it's like, well, actually you can. And, in
Yeah.
doing that, a lot of the times you think you're just going to be like copying them, like, exactly, but you actually are always going to have your own way of doing that, even by trying to imitate it. So it's like, stop freaking out that you're going to like, no one's going to listen to your track and be like, you copied the 1975's drums in this one. Oh,
yeah. I think
no one thinks like that.
Everything's copied. You know what I mean? You can't possibly create something without copying it, because it has to come from somewhere.
Yeah.
Everything is copied, everything. But like, you're doing that in your own way. I think it's kind of just like, you love a bunch of artists, like you said ages ago, and you just put them all together, and that becomes you.
That's so true, man. And so those vocals as well on Holdin U, they were yours.
Yeah, exactly. I think that was probably through my phone.
Nice.
And then I think I just used the Melder auto pitch and Formant shifted it down.
Such a good free plugin.
Yeah. Because like the Little Alter Boy one does this weird thing where like when you Formant shift it down, it like makes it weirdly stereo or something.
It doesn't sound. It's good if you're like harmonizing up or something. I feel like sometimes, but I know what you mean. The auto pitch, if anyone's listening, is a great, like if you need a free like auto tune plugin, that's probably like the best one I think that you could get for free. So check that out. Yeah,
exactly. That's all I use.
Nice. That's cool. Yeah, man. I have like I think I have the Waves Real Tune, which is like meant to be like a really professional one, and it is good. But like sometimes like the imperfections you get from like the slightly worse versions or whatever are like kind of nice. You're like, actually, I kind of like the sound of that better.
Is Waves Real Tune, is that like a live auto tune, or is that one where like it records in the notes and you can move them?
I have the live version, so it's just a real time plugin. Yeah, I think it's Waves Tune Real Time, but they do have like a Melodyne kind of competitor.
Yeah, because I've seen that one.
Yeah. I mean the other big one is like the Antares auto tune, but I haven't really dived into that one. That's like a very like
subscription.
The T-Pain one.
Yeah. I had the subscription for that for a bit, and I was like, this is so expensive. I'm just going to stick with the free Melder one. So
yeah. Once again, I sometimes feel like the tools that you use kind of end up, helping kind of get more interesting results, even if they're not quote unquote the best. So
exactly.
That's fair, man. And also one thing, moving on a bit from that as well, is you were mentioned. We were kind of talking about your tune that's coming out after this in November, which will be out by the time this podcast episode goes live. So if everyone wants to go check that out, I'll leave a link in the show notes for that. But where we are right now is kind of like you're in this process where you're like basically got two tunes you're deciding between for that one. If I'm not mistaken? Yeah.
I've got like a tune that I really like. I've been working on it for a while. Bit more four to the floor. What I might even do is just put like a story on Instagram and just be like, which one do you want? Just put like a clip of both of them and just see what happens.
Do it, man. I think people would really like appreciate that.
Yeah, I think people really like that sort of interactivity. How do you say it? Like being able to interact with what you're going to do as well.
Like engagement or whatever. Yeah,
engagement. Yeah. But yeah, and then I've also got something a little bit more like Holdin U. I think because I hadn't released, because I only just started really releasing singles again. I hadn't really released in quite a while because of COVID and stuff. I had like real big sort of release anxiety about like releasing everything I've been doing recently.
Yeah.
So I was like really scared, like what people are going to think, and everyone's going to hate it or something like that. And then it turned out to get like loads of good feedback, which is really cool. So yeah, I kind of just like down to sort of release more stuff like that now as well.
That's cool.
Yeah, I think with me, like I like so much music, and I'm always going back and forth between different things. But I just love so much different music that I think it's just to release what I want, I suppose. Just release it, like even if like they're different, slightly different styles, whatever. I think I just need to get over just release it, whatever.
Yeah, there is a freedom of like just being like, you know what, I'm just gonna put this out. Like obviously it's art and it's like always like, you know, a very personal thing, but at the same time there is nice to have like a certain level of detachment once it's out, like to be like, you know what, like I have my own thoughts and feelings about this tune, but everyone else is going to receive that like differently, I guess. And it is
Yeah.
interesting to sometimes see how people receive a tune in very different ways, which is cool.
Yeah, I think regardless, like whatever I release, there'll be some people that don't like something as much and other people that like that one more, and then vice versa. And there's always going to be people that like don't vibe what you do, but I think in the end you just stick it out, and it's because it's good. You need to be consistent in this day and age. You have to just put stuff out.
Totally, it is true, and you know, it is just a landscape we're in, right? Like, you know, the 6 week single cycle, I think, is like the most common terminology I've heard recently, and
Yeah.
you know, that might change at some point as well. Like that's kind of what the music industry is doing now, but yeah, it's about being consistent and stuff like that. So, you know, one thing I did want to ask though, have you found your like core fan base has been pretty supportive as you've kind of like tried different things, or do you find like, yeah, that's good.
They're always like really supportive of everything I do, so that's just like so cool. I think as long as you sort of like build a vision around it and
Yeah,
whatever, then your fans will just trust you anyway. I think they just they trust you as just like as a person and an artist. They like they trust every decision you make, I suppose. So
yeah, that is cool. That's cool, man. Awesome. Well, have you, beyond that, like you've got a few shows coming up in the US. I think you're going on tour with Slow Magic, if I'm not mistaken, and among a few other things. Do you want to let us know the deets about those ones?
Yeah, so I haven't actually looked at all the places I'm playing properly. I mean, I probably should. But I think it's West Coast, is it? I don't know America very well, to be honest.
Somewhere in America, that big place on the map. I'm going here.
It's LA and stuff like that. I'm staying at my buddy Roman Silvers, I think, if you know him.
Nice.
He lives in, what's it called? It's in the desert somewhere, like north of LA, I think. It's Palm Springs. I think he lives there, Palm Springs.
Okay, cool.
So I'll be going there, and then I'll go on tour with San, I think, first, and then Slow Magic first, I think, and then San. I can't remember. I should probably like really look into this because it's not very far away. But yeah, I don't know. I've got my set ready. I've got the most important part ready. I've got like a wicked set done. For like Slow Magic one, I'm bringing my own little deck, which is a DDJ SX2, and then for San's one, we'll be on the tour bus. So there'll be like CDJs at each venue and stuff, which would be nice. I'm excited because it's been like I was meant to tour before COVID, and then COVID happened. I remember like sitting in the car with my mate, being like, "Oh, look at this thing on." I was on Twitter. I was like, "Look at this thing in China. There's like some mad virus going on," and then like all of a sudden, like tours cancelled. I'm like, "What the hell?" So then,
damn,
it's finally coming back, which is really cool, and I'm very stoked. It's going to be really
That's
cool.
good, man. I'm good, glad to hear, because that would have, I think like that. I've heard a couple of stories of just those tours right before COVID, so it's nice you can get back on the road and play some shows. Totally. I'm sure that'll be super fun, man. I'll leave links for both those. Hopefully, I'll be able to grab links for both those. As many of those shows that are available to check out, I'll leave links so you can go see if you'll have Duskus in your area. But yeah, man, that's exciting. Lots of things happening. Anything else fun that you're kind of thinking about vaguely that you might want to do music wise, or just kind of taking it as it comes at the moment?
I don't know. I feel really inspired at the moment, which is good. I think moving into this new place has been like really, really good.
Totally.
And I've also put the studio in the lounge now. You can't really see it, but
cool.
We're getting a new desk soon, and we're going to really upgrade it. Right now, it's just a really crappy setup, but we're going to properly do it in here. I live with my mate he works in a studio and he writes pop music and stuff like that.
Sweet.
And he's really cool. So we've just been collaborating a lot, which is nice. And I think it's cool having a studio in a different room to your bedroom, because I'm so used to just waking up, getting out of bed and sitting at my desk. But now I get out of bed and I walk into this room and I make a coffee and then I make music, and it's so much nicer. I don't know. And the light in here is so good. It just comes through. I love it.
Oh man, it's a nice balance between like having your studio at home so it's easily accessible, but like having it in a separate place rather than it just all being cramped in. Like I'm in a similar position. Like I got this bedroom in the apartment I'm in, and like right behind here, there's like floor to ceiling windows. So during the day, like you get really good natural light. I think natural light is a very key thing if you're inside like us and producing all day.
Exactly. It's very needed. Yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome, man. Good to hear. Cool, man. I'm going to ask one last question, which is something I'm asking everyone who comes on. It's a little like, it's a bit of a trick question. You'll see what I mean when I ask it. So don't freak out too much. It's a fun one.
Okay.
So if you had a time machine, if you could go back and change one thing over the course of your artist journey, what do you think it would be?
I don't know. I suppose it's just like probably just be careless in a way. Like I think the more you worry, the more you kind of set yourself up to limits. Or just don't worry about what other people think as much. I think just do what you want. That's the most important thing. I think a lot of people fall into the trap of just worrying what other people think, and I think you just got to do what you like. Like this. I don't really worry what people think of what I wear, so I don't know why I worry about what people think of my music. You just got to not care. Yeah.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, I mean, the reason I say it's a trick question is because, like, I feel like we all make mistakes and they kind of make us who we are today. But yeah, I definitely think like the external like pressures we put on ourselves, like what do we think people think of us or think of our music or stuff like that, like they can be very real, but at the same time like they're not voices that you want to be listening to, because it's like what you're doing is what's the most important thing at the end of the day. So that's great, man. That's
exactly. I feel like most people just worry about themselves, like just do you. It doesn't really matter. Like in the end, when you're like an old man, you probably wish you put out that random track or you posted that thing, because who cares when you're like old? So just do it.
Exactly. Yeah, that's just do it. I'll insert the Shia LaBeouf
exactly
thing there. That's great, man. Really good advice. Awesome, man. Well, this has been super fun. Thank you so much for jumping on again, man.
Thank you for having me, man. It was really cool. Good questions. I liked it.
Glad you enjoyed, man. It's awesome. Where can people find you online if they want to go check out your stuff?
I think I am /Duskus official. So like Instagram.com/Duskus official. Let me just double check that. /Duskus official. The same on Twitter. It's the same on, I think, everything else. Yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Awesome. I'll check that all below as well. But awesome, Simon. Thank you so much, man. This has been fun.
Yeah, man. Thank you for having me, dude. Really cool.